the robot is replacing the lawyer. We're looking at migration, the follow to join refugees and asylees. I'm wondering if there's $100,000 penalty, I shouldn't call it a penalty, imposed upon spouses who want to join. So I was looking through the H-1B program, and so more than anything right now, I've talked about that quite a lot, and I can go back into it. But I mean, there's so much listed here. I'm going to see if I can get Chat GPT back up. I should be able to. And
I'm sorry, but you've hit the daily limit for advanced voice.
oh no, I've hit my limit. Okay, so I'm just going to have to go through this on my own right now. I'm going to have to go through this on my own. Follow to join refugees and asylees. Important. Let me ask this at the beginning. Is there $100,000 tariff on the follow to join refugees and asylees? Due to processing changes, follow to join refugee cases processed by Department of State embassies and consulates will only be processed at embassies or consulates offering immigrant visa services or U.S. citizenship and immigration services, USCIS international field offices. This means that cases currently being processed at posts that only adjudicate non-immigrant visa applications will be transferred, and follow to join refugee beneficiaries may need to travel to another country in order to be interviewed. If your case is being transferred, you will be notified by the Department of State. Now, the thing I want to address about this, one of the questions that came to my mind is, in the 1803, did we have immigration services back then? How did this work? And now the thing I want to also add in there is that there's the potential of ungoverned parts of the world, where people are living in ungoverned parts of the world. That is a fact. They are asking for help. What the help they're asking for, I believe, is organizing a government and having something stable for in their region where they live. That's what I'm noticing. I'm noticing a common thread, a common denominator with that. So they don't want war either, is my understanding. And so I think they know that it's best for them probably to be in their area, but they just want to be able to. Now, the United States, before I get too far off track, the United States is inflated. So it makes it hard for people from foreign countries to actually be able to perform trades with the United States right now, because the dollar is so out of whack. Our monetary system is so out of whack. Now, I saw something about Jerome Powell being sued. Now, they really need to, they were talking about his building, and he's having some building remodeled or something. Now, it's not him personally, it's his department, because the thing is, he inherited the mess that's going on right now. He's just following suit. I don't know how to fix this. I don't think that getting rid of the Fed chair as a gauge and metric is probably a good idea, unless someone has a transition that they're installing into place where I think maybe a robot or some type of artificial intelligence software could actually adjust an cost of living to bring it down. I kind of believe that the cost of living, that's probably for another video. If we put computer software into the Fed chair, I believe that robotic computer software could analyze what's going on, and with prices rising higher, and the software programs would actually be able to come up with a solution on how we could evenly bring prices down so things are affordable for the American public and affordable for free trade around the world and even in our own region with other nations who don't have a high currency like we have right now. Yeah, I just talked through something. However, I'm not a computer engineer. And so those with the computer engineer power would have to be able to do this. I think that's a great idea. And so then people in their countries would not be seeking asylum to the United States when they're not literally having issues in their country. It's more or less they're destabilized because of the fact that they have a hard time trading with other countries. Now, trading with other countries is, yeah, you can create agreements. I don't see anything wrong with that, actually. Creating agreements with other countries for the purposes of free trade around the world. And then we have reciprocal benefits for the trade and what we do in the countries, related to food and helping get food to regions. And that's going to create jobs for American citizens and that country. So, I mean, I think we've had some forms of that in the past. I don't know about the 1803 court. Now, there is a lot of problems in some regions. Now, the regions that have the problems are going to take, I am going to have to recommend some people who would be relatable. You would have to put relatable people into the Africa regions to talk to them. Relatable is the thing. And so you're going to need relatable people in order to address things, for the country, so you're not showing hostilities, let's put it that way. And the same thing with France and Sweden, because there is, let's see here, there's processing locations in France, Sweden, and South Africa. So this is about migration more than anything. But I was wondering, is there $100,000 fee? I'm wondering, maybe there should be, I don't know. I just don't know. Renewing visas for foreign military stationed in the United States. Temporary religious worker visas. Okay. It's always an interesting topic, that's for sure. It shouldn't go in the direction that it does. So the question I'm asking is there $100,000 on follow to join refugee and asylees, like as there is with the H-1B program, or does this fit into the H-1B program, follow to join, and it's all a lump? That's what I'm wondering. I'm asking that question. I don't see anything on here related to follow to join, and I'm hoping, because a lot of this addresses United States military, and I'm hoping United States military are not caught up in this, where you would have a soldier and his wife, and they had a baby, and the baby was born in a foreign country, and then they're told that they have to pay $100,000. Can you imagine that? A soldier who is caught up in migration, and the soldier is told he has to pay $100,000 to migrate his baby into the United States. Somebody's going to have to pay that. Donald Trump, I'm thinking, is going to have to pay that if a soldier gets caught up into the migration with the $100,000 because he has a baby. And that's something I've been thinking about. It's like, my goodness, I had a baby in Germany, and with all this going on right now, that's what I'm feeling like. If I was living in Germany, and migrating to the United States, my husband's in the military, am I going to be caught up in having to pay can you imagine that? Like, well, I want to bring my baby to the United States. My husband has orders to go to the United States, and then because of immigration, then I'm stuck in a foreign country, and the government's saying, well, leave the wife behind, the husband can go. She has to stay behind then somewhere. They have to pay for her and the baby to stay somewhere. And that's exactly what's going to happen, is that she's going to be in a foreign country. She's an American citizen. The baby's an American citizen. She has her paperwork and everything. It's just, um, sure, she's trying to get her paperwork, and she gets the immigration office, and then is told, once she gets the immigration office to the nearest consular, that her and her husband are told that they have to pay $100,000 to bring their baby to the United States. That's what I'm thinking. Because if the $100,000 is placed on everybody, then I'm thinking the way that a JAG lawyer would view this, it would have to be that a United States military soldier's family, and they have a baby in a foreign country, and it's going to cost them $100,000 to bring the baby back to the United States. I don't see it any other way. I wanted to talk this through with ChatGPT, but I've reached my limit for the day, so I have to wait until later on in the day to actually connect back with ChatGPT again. And so I don't have any other talking chat programs that are decent. So I get a better dialogue with ChatGPT right now. And so, but what the thing is it's about the $100,000 for coming to the United States, or that's what I'm asking. Is it even put on for that? Is it put on for American soldiers? Which I think it should be. And everybody, even the people who are nonprofit, if they have a baby. So, for example, there's been some TV shows of some families, and even in the United States, some entertainment people who go to foreign countries, and religious workers all the time go to foreign countries, and they have babies in foreign countries, right? And so they're going to want to bring their baby from their foreign country back to the United States. What was it, Jane Goodall? What did she have a baby in a foreign country? Let me look this up real quick here, and we'll see. Did Jane Goodall? I'm going to ask Google here. Jane Goodall have a baby in a foreign country? Okay, we're going to use Jane Goodall. Yes, she did. Jane Goodall. Okay, Jane Goodall is a very excellent example. Jane Goodall had her son Hugo Grubb Van Lawick in a foreign country, specifically Nairobi, Kenya, in 1967. Oh my gosh, she's my age. While she was deep in her chimpanzee research in Tanzania, East Africa, her husband Hugo Van Lawick documented her work, and their son grew up largely in the Gombe Stream National Park, Tanzania, amidst the chimpanzees. Oh my gosh, I love her story. I love her story with a passion. And so this is what I would argue at this point to an 1803 court, is the fact that Jane Goodall, when she comes to the United States as a foreign worker, then with a nonprofit organization, then her son would have to pay $100,000. So she's migrating her son to the United States. Let me see here and see if I can find out a little bit more about Jane Goodall. I need to ask this. Okay. Was Jane Goodall's husband an American citizen? Neither of Jane Goodall's two husbands was an American citizen. So her first husband, from 1964 to 1974, Baron Hugo van Lawick, a Dutch nobleman and a wildlife photographer. So no, he was not. Her second husband, married in 1975 to 1980, was Derek a British Tanzanian politician, and the director of Tanzania National Park. So neither one of them were uh, American citizens. So her son, Jane, was an American citizen. So her son has American citizenship. I don't know how it works over in Africa, but I believe that Jane eventually came to the United States. Let me see what year Jane came to the United States. What year did Jane Goodall come back to the United States with her son? Jane Goodall's son, Hugo Grubb Van Lawick, was born in 1967. Oh, there isn't a specific year for a singular return to the U.S. with him, as she settled her base in the U.K. for her family's support, though she visited the States often for her work. Okay, so Jane Goodall's son, as I'm talking to the 1807 Supreme Court, he would be a migrant to the United States, and at this point, he is a legal American citizen born abroad, and he would have to pay $100,000 at this point to come into the United States. So, what I'm saying at this point related to immigration laws, I don't see anything on the website related to the price tag. It sounds very expensive, so I'm thinking military families are going to be caught up with having to pay $100,000, and so nonprofit folks such as Jane Goodall, she passed away recently, and there's no information related to her son or where he's at right now. Or what his citizenship status is. Even though he's lived abroad in a foreign country, the man might decide to come to the United States at some point to collect Social Security. Even he legally can, even though he's probably never paid Social Security to the system before in his life. Now let me take a look, see here. What I'll ask this question. It's going to be fascinating. The question, her son is Hugo Grubb Eric Lewis. Okay, can't we? Her son Hugo Grubb Van Lawick is his name. Okay, so let me see. What country is a citizen of? Okay, so Hugo, he's a Tanzanian citizen while born in Nairobi, Kenya. He grew up in Tanzania. Okay, so there's not a lot of information about him. Okay, so, but let me ask a little bit further. So, Hugo Grubb would be as a child of an American citizen, living abroad, could collect Social Security in USA with a mother, Jane Goodall, as American citizen. Okay, so this is a fascinating thought bubble right here. Yes, as a citizen born to an American. Yeah, absolutely. Do you see where this goes? So Jane Goodall's. This is a fascinating. This is a perfect example, and I love Jane Goodall too. So I mean, she gives me inspiration on some of my thought bubbles that I have here. And so yes, and morning is the best time for me. I put this out on TikTok yesterday. I said when I wake up from anywhere from 3 in the morning, it has to be after 3 in the morning. 3 in the morning, between 3 to 6, to say my thoughts, because that's when I have the most clarity. That's when I'm the least amount of tired. I've had a little bit of nap, and so I can make sense out of this. And so it goes from day to day, making sense out of these things, which I know people say, don't make sense out of it, don't. But this says, yes, as a U.S. citizen born to an American mother, Jane Goodall, Hugo Grubb Van Lawick could generally be eligible for U.S. Social Security benefits even living abroad through specific rules depend on his age, citizen status, and whether he lived outside of the U.S. for extended periods as a non-citizen, but his child status under Goodall's record, if she was insured, or his own potential record, would be the key. U.S. citizens can usually receive payments overseas, while non-citizens face restrictions after 6 months outside of the U.S. unless exceptions apply. So, rehearse conversation. Let's ask this question. Start a Q&A. I've never rehearsed conversations. I've never rehearsed conversations before. Sometimes things that I just, they just come back up as a prompt. That's interesting, though. Rehearse conversations with who? With ChatGPT. That's what the prompt looks like. And so, eligibility for payments. He needs to meet the criteria either as a dependent on his mother's record, if she was insured, or as an insured individual himself. Living abroad, U.S. citizens can generally receive benefits in most countries, but non-citizens face restrictions after 6 months outside of the U.S. unless they are in a country with a totalization agreement. How it works: as a child, if Goodall was receiving Social Security, retirement, or disability benefits, Grubb might have received dependent benefits, child benefits under the 1819, or disabled even if living abroad with her. As an adult, if he worked and earned through Social Security credits, he could claim retirement or disability benefits himself, which would generally continue while living in most countries. Given Jane Goodall's status and his own potential citizenship dependency, is plausible Grubb could collect U.S. Social Security benefits while living abroad through the exact mechanism, dependent versus own record, and rules around non-citizen periods would apply. Okay, fascinating. This is a fascinating, interesting argument right here. It's not an argument. I don't like the word argument right now. I think it's too strong for a discussion, but it is an argument. That's a legal term. Lawyers argue, but they don't the lawyers aren't in there to the 1803 Supreme Court. The lawyers aren't in there arguing and knocking the daylights out of each other and throwing chairs at each other or anything like that. However, we've seen how British Parliament has erupted at times with things that are very close to that. So I need to do a little bit more and ask AI related to how Jane Goodall's son Hugo would collect Social Security if he's never lived in the United States and she never had him become an American citizen. Or maybe she did. I don't know. I don't know if she did or not. So she had a work record. She was working in a foreign country. I know she came back to the United States at a point. Well, let's look here. Okay, Hugo Grubb. Let's ask this question. Does Hugo Grubb Van Lawick have an American birth certificate born abroad? Hugo Grubb Van Lawick, son of Jane Goodall and Hugo Van Lawick, was born in Tanzania in 1967, not the U.S., and while he was raised in a global context, he likely holds Tanzanian British citizenship and not an American birth certificate, as his parents weren't U.S. citizens at his birth. So, though Jane Goodall later, oh, so she was not an American. Why did I think she was an American citizen? I thought she was an American citizen. See, okay, that's my fault. So I can't argue this then, or can I? So she later became an American citizen. So how would that grandfather? Maybe it does play a role. So she later became an American citizen. So her son, yeah, this is still a good example to think about, a good thought bubble. Okay, so I thought she was an American citizen her whole life, born in the United States. So does this open the door for her son to be grandfathered in, get Social Security because his mom became an American citizen, or not, where he spent the majority of his life? So let me ask this question. What year did, what year did Jane Goodall become an American citizen? Jane Goodall became a U.S. citizen by naturalization 2006. So that was long after her son was born. That was long after her son was born. So in this context, can her son claim American citizenship from his, not that he ever would, but I'm just asking, can he claim citizenship through this process and collect Social Security through his, I'm thinking there has to be a disconnection there at some point because of the fact she was not an American citizen when he was born, and then she later became an American citizen. So can he grab a hold of American citizenship through that channel? So could Jane Goodall's son request American citizenship based on his mother becoming naturalized around 2006? That's a fascinating thought bubble right there for me. I'm not a lawyer though, so I don't know anything about this. I'm just reading what I see on the internet here. But it's a fascinating thought bubble related to migration to the United States of America, and then people who decide, well, hey, maybe I do have a connection. I'm broke right now. I need a little bit of money, so let's see if I can apply for some Social Security from a foreign country, even though I have never lived in the United States. Both of my parents were foreign. Maybe that's key right there. Both of my parents were foreign when I was born. I was born in a foreign country. But then my mother later became a naturalized American citizen. So can I grasp a hold of that with what she did individually after I was born? I'm kind of feeling like no, but that's just my thought. I'm feeling like no. However, but when people are broke, we could have open a whole can of worms here on this discussion. We very easily could. Because this is the whole premise of the argument when people come to the United States based on where their baby is born. So you have two. So Jane Goodall would be an excellent example in the sense of, say that her and her husband, or say that she just came by herself to the United States, she had the baby, and then she went back, then she's claiming citizenship. So in this same case, then Jane Goodall later, maybe that's why she did it, I don't know, or to create this thought bubble. So in 2006, then, so she has the baby, which I thought she was an American citizen, which, as it's presented in media, she is an American citizen because she was naturalized around 2006. And so then at this point, but she was living in a foreign country. At the time her son was born, she was not an American citizen. Her baby was not an American citizen, and her husband was not an American citizen. So can, the other thing I have to ask too is, can her son come to the United States then and collect Social Security based on his mother's connections? I'm thinking the answer would probably be no, but I mean, it could become something that could become another distraction in our media. It very easily could be in the next, in the next 20, 30 years. Very easily could become another legal distraction brought up in media related to citizenship. Not only that, and I'm feeling like her son probably would have to, yeah, he'd have to pay the $100,000 migration to the United States. It's a very interesting rehearsed conversations. A lot of people rehearse conversations. I always heard that about politicians. Okay, so let's go to let's see what rehearsing conversations is. Oh, let's see what explained is. Okay, I don't have a talking thing on here right now. I'm not going to be able to get a speaking dialogue at this point. Search is not a speaking, well, I can speak to search. It's not something that talks back to me. Okay, let's look at this. Okay, what is the purpose of rehearsing conversations? What's the purpose? Okay. Rehearsing conversations helps prepare for difficult. Oh, yeah, that makes sense right there off the top. Rehearsing conversations helps prepare for difficult talks, reduce anxiety by planning responses, improves clarity, and achieve a sense of control. But excessive rehearsal, rumination, can backfire, increasing anxiety and hindering genuine interaction by creating rigidity and overthinking. It's a strategy to navigate social situations, manage conflict, and ensure you feel heard, but it can become a harmful safety behavior if overdone, making you stumble or avoid real connection. Preparation and confidence. Practice difficult conversations like asking for a raise to feel more prepared and confident. Clarity and thoughtfulness. Yeah, that's what some folks have said related to people asking. Drawbacks: when it becomes rumination, increased anxiety, excessive rehearsal can paradoxically increase anxiety and make you stumble more. False control: it offers an illusion of control but can lead to rumination and negative moods. Yeah, what was it? There was something. Oh, I know what it was that kind of set me off. That kind of got me into the stumbling. You know what it was? It was thinking about the place I was at before. So I've had two of those, two of the places where I was at before, which have set me into negative moods. And so, I mean, so it's like from one place it got worse to the second place was worser. And, however, right now, it's like, that's why I say right now it's a 1,000 times better than the two previous places. Now, the thing is, the first place I was at, I really liked the very first place because of the fact that it was something where I was in my own environment. It was just, didn't like the fact that my husband was there. And so I had the anxiety over him going, possibly being there, and I was having a hard time. I didn't know what the outcome of the divorce was going to be. I felt like I couldn't get the screaming out of my head, and that's all I was hearing was screaming in my head, with him yelling at me. Thankfully, that's gone. There comes days that I probably don't think about him. It's just that I realize the situation I'm in right now is because of him. And then I also think too, sometimes it makes me mad because of the fact that it's like, well, if he really felt that way, It's like, well, he should have told me, and why would I have given him money? This is the thing I second guess now, which changes me and my dynamics on relationships. Because then it has me feeling like, okay, well, you did this to me, so I'm probably going to have a hard time in the future with relationships related to money or something equally, which should be done freely. In the marriages that I was in, it was done freely. Now my thought bubble has changed. My thought process has changed. It's like, then I'm not going into a relationship unconditionally because of the fact he changed me forever with what he did, with wanting to keep everything for himself. And now I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, well, gosh, is another guy going to do that to me? Then I think back to my first husband. It's like, well, he had the mindset. He never really got upset. It didn't seem like my first husband didn't, in paying for things. I mean, sometimes it seemed like he wanted to be upset, but then again, he was taken care of. He always had a place to stay. And so, even though things were made harder for me, I know things were made harder for him. Um, but what he said was true to an extent, which he couldn't have predicted that, but he did. He says, "I'll take care of you and that baby for the rest of your life," and it's like, well, those are probably words that by now he probably regrets. However, but the government kind of did step in and have a plan to help out with people who do need help, and so in that aspect, I try to think about that, and hopefully if I ever get to a place of not being in a relationship again, or being in a relationship. So I wonder if this is the ruminating that causes anxiety, because I have been feeling a tiny bit of anxiety, but I think it's maybe because of the time of year too. And, it's not like 5 years is not that long. And, when you're put in that situation, and then things get worse from it, plus it's during COVID, um, I mean, it makes sense for me, for people who didn't have anything bad happen during COVID. It makes sense to me that they would think things are going to be great after COVID. But for the rest of us who have had bad things happen, for the foster kids who have been put out, and I wasn't even thinking about them, but for them who have been dumped out into society, how are these foster kids supposed to afford an apartment, a place to stay that's like $6,000 a month? How are they supposed to afford that? That's what I'm asking. So, um, good grief, And so, but the great thing about ChatGPT, it keeps telling me to think about these thought bubbles. And the other thing too, the thought bubbles with ChatGPT, it literally comes up with something else, and so it does take my brain away from the painful things. So I mean, that doesn't mean I'm forgetting. It just means it's able to kind of break my chain of thought a little bit. And so, anyway. So yes, in some senses, if what's coming up to me in the search is the same for everybody else, then it can become a rehearsed conversation. But if it's coming up worded differently, then it would not be a rehearsed conversation, right? I think that's all I have to say right now. I kind of want to do something fun. I kind of want to draw something. I'm not sure what, or maybe find a chat area where TikTok is slowly turning. It's got some folks that are on there who want to talk now, and it's slowly turning a little bit related to the dialogue, which is kind of nice, because people are feeling isolated. I know that. And me, I've just kind of had to suck it up and, Well, I was in the heat of, I know exactly what's going on. I mean, I know exactly what the isolation is. And, some of that toxic stuff. And it comes out of, I mean, I've said it and I want to say things about it, but at the same time, I don't want to offend anybody. And so I feel like, okay, I'm better off just to not say anything. But I know that that's the hard part. It's like, okay, do I say something and then sound like and get called certain words, or which, that's the part I'm tired of. And it's like, okay, I'm not doing it. I've bowed out of the conversation for the most part. I will talk to people who are going to come towards me calmly and not with aggression. I like the non-aggressive. Now there's a big difference between being aggressive and mean versus passionate in that sense. So passionate about something is a little bit different, but passionate about violence is not, that's toxic. And so, okay, that's all I have to say.